He's going to work on downloading it to YouTube and everything else. You ready?
Yeah.
It's on? Now you got one more thing. Come here. While it's still up, come here. He's sitting here like, what am I going to do? Y'all give my videographer a hand. I need something from you.
Is this money? I don't have it.
You ain't got no money? Why don't you have any money?
Payday's not till Wednesday.
Payday's not till Wednesday. What happened between your money and the last payday?
Vacation.
I enjoy it.
Vacation? What'd you do? You spent it all on vacation?
Like,
You spent $50. What happened to the rest of it?
when I think of school.
You got to pay for school. What about giving your dad something?
I have a job, a career.
What does that got to do with anything?
I don't have that much money.
You don't have that much money. So you don't have enough money that if your father needs to ask you for some money to, I don't know, pay for your sister or some dinner or lunch or something like that, you couldn't give it to him.
She got her own money.
She got her own money. Oh, so you're not giving anybody any money. It's your money is yours. Is that what it is?
Dad, ask him who bought him dinner yesterday.
You took who to dinner yesterday?
Ask him who provided him with dinner yesterday.
Who provided you with dinner yesterday?
The Lord.
The Lord. Did the Lord happen to take the shape of a 5'4" pretty young lady that's related to you?
It was dark.
It was dark. But you can't give me no money because you broke. Okay, all right. You go be seated. Man. Ain't it a shame that children can't even, and dads can't even get money from their children to pay for some food, a meal or something like that? Because they broke. They broke. 19 years old and broke. Now, I'll give him a little grace because he's 19 years old and he has his little job and he's actually trying to work to pay for school and stuff like that.
Amen.
The problem is when you're 25 years old and broke, or 34 years old and broke, or 46 years old and broke, or 57 years old and broke, or whatever, and we're broke. Because one of the things that means when we're broke is many times we may not be taking care of what God has given us. Amen?
Amen.
And so in our series on biblical stewardship, I want to talk to you for a few seconds today from the subject of upside down living. Upside down living. Now our passage is from Matthew 25:14 through 21. I will read part of it. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey, Jesus is telling his disciples, who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to their ability that they had, and then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. Verse 19, after a long time the master returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I've gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, thy good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many. In other words, if you look at this paragraph, you've been charged, you've taken care of the little money I've given you. And you've increased it, which means I'm going to bless you with more money. Amen?
Amen.
First things first, as we talk about upside down living, the Bible has over 2,000 verses about money, which simply means that it is very important. So let us not then be fooled as people of faith that we shouldn't talk about money. Let us not trick ourselves into thinking that we are extra spiritual because we don't care about money. The truth is, all of us should care about money. It's how we make and purchase things in this world. We've talked about money before as simply being a medium of exchange. In other words, the clothes we wear, the cars we drive, the lights on that are in this building, the lawn when it's being cut, the food that we eat, whatever it is, it takes money to obtain.
Amen.
One of our responsibilities as stewards of managers of what God has given us is to get beyond what we call upside down living. Can you say upside down?
Upside down.
Upside down living is simply this. When we make $100, but we spend $150. Anybody see a problem with that? That means somehow you're finding a way to spend $50 that you don't have, and you're $50 in the hole. There's another word we call for that. Debt. That means you owe somebody when you're in debt. And when we don't talk about money, we end up in traps. One of the interesting verses that the Bible talks about when it talks about money, it says this in Proverbs 22. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Let's think about that for a moment. I don't know, have you ever observed, let's talk about even our political system. Who's normally in office? Wealthy folk, right? Folk who got money. And many times they are making the rules. Now remember, money is amoral. It is just a tool that we use for exchange. What you do with the money determines whether it has morality or immorality. What happens is some folks go into office and they use that money for immorality, but there are some who use it for morality. I happened to listen to a testimony yesterday of a young man who went into business, and as he made some changes in his business, it profited so much that he gave $1.2 million to his church. I said $1.2 million to his church. Church could do a lot with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Amen.
There could be a lot of poor folk fed with that, right?
Amen.
There could be a lot of Bibles and Sunday school sessions bought with that, right? Staff can get paid and wouldn't have to starve with that, right?
Amen.
Repairs could be done to a building, right? New ministries to youth and other things could be done with $1.2 million, right?
Amen.
See, the money was amoral, but it was in the hands of somebody who was moral, amen?
Amen.
And so it did something good. The rich rule over the poor. The borrower is servant to the lender, which simply means that when we go in debt, we are essentially enslaving ourselves. Now, one of the interesting things about biblical times is you actually, if you were in enough debt, they would put you in debtor's prison. You would go to prison and essentially become a slave until you work that debt off. Today is not much different. Let's think about this. We go into debt, and so thus we become slaves to the mortgage company. We become slaves to the car note company. We become slaves to Visa. MasterCard is our master. So many other things. And many of us cannot live purpose-filled lives because of debt. We live on $150 when we're only making $100, right? Why is this? You can put put this down as point one. One of the reasons we engage in upside down living is the temptation of materialism. The temptation of materialism. We want the latest iPhone. We want the nicest car. We want the flash and dash. I heard a testimony from somebody yesterday, and they were talking about in this business conference how at one time they lived in the ghetto. When they lived in the ghetto, they drove around in a hoopty because they didn't have a lot of money. But they were also wondering, why am I in the ghetto and I see Mercedes and BMWs and Lexuses? All these people have all these nice cars and they living in the roughest areas of town. Upside down living. We want the nicest stuff. One of the things I used to do as I was growing up, and actually still do it now a little bit, was watch pro wrestling with my stepfather. There's this guy, and I'm sure most of you have heard of him by the name of Ric Flair.
Yes.
He is styling, profiling, looking as only as he can look. Custom made from head to toe. Got the alligator shoes on, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. That was his character. And he lived it to the fullest. He lived it so much that not only he lived it inside of wrestling, he lived it outside of wrestling. Was one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time, but he had to wrestle into his 50s and his 60s. Why? Because he was like my 19-year-old son. Broke. Broke because he spent the millions and millions on fine dining, fine wine, women and song, and whatever else. In other words, he was upside down living.
Yes.
In many ways, he is the essence of our country. We talk about the national debt all the time. As a country, we are upside down living.
Yes.
And when we are upside down living, we find ourselves becoming slaves to MasterCard, to Visa, to China, or whoever else we owe debt to. The second reason that we find ourselves in upside down living is not just the materialism, but sometimes it's just the high cost of life. Say it with me, the high cost of life. Many people go into debt to enter college. Nothing wrong with that, especially because it's so important to get college or education to advance our careers. Usually what I say to people in that is just learn to count the cost. In other words, don't go on $100,000 in debt for a $25,000 career.
Amen.
Do you see how you find yourself in bondage all of your life? I talked to so many people when I was a career counselor who had so much debt, and they were going working at Macy's or at Dillard's or McDonald's or someplace else because they didn't know how to find their careers or get into their careers. And one of the problems is they end up staying at home because they have a Macy's job after spending $60,000 in school and don't have enough money to be able to get out on their own because half of their paycheck is going to Sally Mae.
Yeah.
Good old Sally. The high cost of life. Sometimes we make investments, and education is an investment. We just have to learn to count the cost. because you will pay that debt on the other side. And one thing about student loan debt, just letting my kids and every other kid know, you can't discharge that one in bankruptcy. You can get rid of your mortgage, you can get rid of your condo, you can get rid of your credit card debt, you can get rid of a whole lot of debt, but that student debt, it stays with you till you die. Or till you pay it off, one or the other. Third reason. Well, this is really the second one. Still, life circumstances can place us in debt. A family might have to deal with a major illness and all the medical costs that are associated with that. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but I remember looking at some of my mother's cancer bills, and I was so grateful she was insured, because every time the chemo treatments came up, it was thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. Crazy. You're paying for the doctor, you're paying for the nurse, you're paying for the seat, you're paying for the IV, you're paying for the stuff that goes in, you're paying for the treatment that goes out, you're paying for the recovery, you're paying for someone to help take care of you at home, you're paying extra to eat certain foods so you can get nutrition. You're paying for a lot of stuff. And sometimes major health illnesses can place people in debt.
That's right.
Sometimes legal trouble can place people in debt. Your child has a bad encounter with law enforcement, and maybe they've done something, and so you spend money you don't expect to spend trying to find the best legal representation at hundreds of dollars an hour. Maybe you experience an unexpected job loss, and all of a sudden you were able to pay the bills, but now you can't pay the bills anymore. And so you go in debt trying to get out of it. So 2 reasons for upside down living. One is the lure of materialism, which applies to most of us. And 2, sometimes the high cost of life. And 3, unfortunate life circumstances. The question for us then is, how do we become good stewards of what God has given us? It's important to be good stewards so we can bless others. That man who gave $1.2 million to his church was able to do that because he was a good steward of the finances he had. And so when his church needed some money, he could give them $1.2 million and he wouldn't miss it out of his pocket. But when we're broke and our church asks for money, or our family asks for money, or some charity asks for money, or whatever else asks for money, we can't give it. Because we are living at $150 when we're only making $100. One of the ways we get out of the bondage of debt and upside down living is what we call a budget. Every place should have a budget. Your house should have a budget. Your church should have a budget. Your business should have a budget. We like to say that a budget is this. You're telling your money where to go instead of it deciding on its own. A budget means that you're telling your money where to go instead of it deciding on its own. It's interesting. I wish these 2 young men were here today. Tristan and Zalea, you get to be responsible for sending this message back to your brother. I'll let parents send this message to my other teenagers. Was talking with them. They are working now. Nick's working, Kinston's working, Tristan's working. They're getting some of their own money in their pocket. They're getting some money in their own pocket enough that they don't have to ask their parents for everything. So I was having conversations with them, and I said, okay, how's work going? Work's going good. I said, how's it feel to be making money in your own pocket? Oh, man, it feels great. What you spending your money on? I don't know. Food. And I started laughing. I started laughing because I remember when I was their age and how I ate away so much money in chicken wings and Arby's sandwiches. They're doing that because they don't know how to tell their money where to go yet. And because they don't know how to tell their money where to go yet, we guarantee you that people are constantly trying to take it out of your pocket. So when they go by the chicken wing stand and they smell that hot sauce, that barbecue, them fries are popping, and that pineapple drink is waiting, it calls their name out and it says, come get me. You got enough money. And so they go and they get it and they eat it. And they're young, so they eat some more and more and more.
Yes.
And then the next thing you do is you come to them and you ask them questions like, you got money for school? No. You got money? Can I have some money to take my girlfriend out? That's your girlfriend. You supposed to have money for that. I got to have money to take out my girlfriend. You need yours. Nothing wrong with that. They're young. It's our responsibility to teach them how to do this stuff.
Amen.
But the thing is, we sit in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and our 70s, and we don't budget or we don't tell our money where to go.
Amen.
And so things like to call our money for us. In short, I'm not going to go fully into budget today, but a good ratio is this, and we talked about this in our stewardship class. Give 10%, save 10%, live off 80%. Can you say give 10%?
Give 10%.
Can you say save 10%?
Save 10%.
Can you say live off 80%?
Live off 80%.
What it simply means is this. If it costs more than the 80%, you say, I can't get it right now. Do I really need to get it right now, or can I wait and save some money and go get it? It makes you think about the resource that God has already given us in order to survive or maintain in this world. We live off 80 so we can give 10. Why do we give? Because it's designed to go around. Just as God gave us, we give to bless others. Amen? Amen. Like the man who gave 1.2 million, I don't know what percentage of his income that was, but he was able to give that. And then we save because we all know that stuff happens. Amen? Amen. Cars break down unexpectedly. Like a few weeks ago, we getting ready to go on vacation, and then we had to get the car checked and something else happened. And they said, oh yes, William, that will be $600. Huh? But you have to go get $600 to pay it. And the good thing is, if you have the $600 to pay it, it's a lot easier than saying, here, Mr. Credit Card Man, take this. Because Mr. Credit Card will say, okay, I'll pay that $600 for you, but I'm going to charge you 20% interest. So what happens is, Mr. Credit Card Man has paid $600 for you, but you're going to be paying Mr. Credit Card Man $720 back.
Amen.
How many people could do something with an extra $120? Amen?
Amen.
So this is why we need to learn to be stewards. In closing, I do want to say one thing, and this is especially to our youth, our 22, our 19, our 16, our 14, and to any youth that are out there. I want to say this because it's important, because I've heard youth talk about this. Recognize that in most cases you will not have your parents' standard of living right away. I've heard you say this, I can only have the nicest car. I can't have anything but a BMW, or I can't have anything but an Infiniti, or I can't, I gotta have the latest iPhone, or I gotta have such and such shoes. I gotta have. You're being tricked by materialism. You don't get to live large when you first come out of college.
Amen.
You don't get to unless you have a job that's up to that standards. Buy a 5-bedroom home for $350,000. Your parents had to work hard to get there. And unless you're like this 14-year-old girl I saw at this conference this week who made a business out of baking cakes and is making loads of money, you don't get to live that standard right away. Do you know, youth, and I want you to think about this, how long it took your parents to get what they had? I have a Toyota Tundra Platinum sitting outside. I love my truck. It is nice. It costs some money. My children see my Toyota Tundra Platinum, but they don't know about the 75 rusted Dodge Duster I used to own with the broken taillights that barely worked at night and the radio that popped in and out. In other words, it took a while to get to the Platinum.
Amen.
I had to start with the Duster and pay about $500. And I don't know how much I paid in oil before it died because it burned reports of oil literally every trip. I'd leave puddles of oil. You wouldn't want me parking your driveway because oil would just splashing down. Call my car Texas. It flowed so much oil. Just down, down, down. Your parents did not start out eating steak and lobster. Sometimes there was beans and rice. Sometimes there's beans and no rice. Or rice and no beans. They don't know one of the things I used to do in college and early about, because I didn't have no money, I'd find the frat house or the house that was serving the free food so I could go get some pizza for dinner. Free food, man. Hey, that's a survival skill. I tell all of them in college, y'all need to learn that. Free food is a skill. And y'all can do it so much more with all these apps. They kind of tell you, okay, they're having a party, they have this. Y'all can really get it. I'm having fun with that, but I want y'all to know, youth, in other words, it's going to take time to build where you want to go. It's going to take maturity on your part to be able to build where you want to go and being able to hold out without getting in ridiculous kinds of debt. It takes maturity to be able to walk in the mortgage office when you first look for a house and they want to qualify you at 50% of your salary. And you say, no, that much. I'm only going to do this so I'm paying 20-25% a year. Why is that important? Because when you lose your job, you can still keep your house. I'm a living testimony of that. When I lost my engineering job, I thought about if we had bought the house that they wanted us to have, we probably would have been homeless. It takes time. The Bible talks about it. Seed time and harvest time.
Amen.
Seed time and harvest time. Seed time and harvest time. So I say this to say you don't get discouraged. If your first car has to be a 1986 Honda, that's okay. You take care of that Honda the best way you can. Because the little known fact is whether it's a 1986 Honda or it's a 2018 Infiniti, they both drive and they both get you from one place to the other because that's the purpose of a vehicle.
Amen.
You start on the bus. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Just know that one day if you keep working, my youth, you keep working, that you will eventually get to the place where you can have all these things that your parents have. And if you listen and benefit from your parents' wisdom, you will be able to have that and so much more, hopefully without the debt, so you won't be singing the song that the seven dwarfs sing. I owe, it's off to work, I go. Final thought. It's important for us to manage this because one of the things I like to work with people is to have purpose-filled living. A lot of us can't live purpose-filled living because we're in so much debt. If you're a teacher in the school system, you can't afford as much debt as a corporate manager who's making $100,000 a year. But if that's your purpose, you will find so much more fulfillment in spending the time and energy, and yes, even some of the money, helping the kids out and watching them grow, than sitting at an office hating every day you go to work. I don't know about you, but I don't hate every day I go to work. I get to do what I'm called to do. I get to preach, I get to teach, I get to counsel, I get to have fun. What would it be like to live in such a way that you ain't just waiting for the weekend? One of the ways we do that is by taking care of what God gives us and getting away from upside down living. Can we say amen?
Amen.
Thank you so much. Upside down living.